What's happening, everybody? Well, I've been getting some questions about the setup of the car, basically asking for a breakdown as to what weight reduction I have employed and what else have I done to get this thing to run a string of 1008s and one 1005 at 136 miles an hour on stock boost with 93 octane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to show you guys, chronicle some of those modifications, and then I'll let you know some of the headaches that I've run into along the way with some of those modifications, and a bit more of the philosophy behind the car as well. All right, guys, starting up front, she does have that aluminum front bumper support as well as a Scat Pack sway bar. Those two combined save, if I'm remembering correctly, somewhere around 20-ish pounds off the front of the car. I did a couple of videos chronicling both of those modifications. Up front here, cooling system wise, that is a Reich 170 degree thermostat, soon to be swapped out for a more common 180. It's having some odd issues, kind of always has, where it will open. When it opens, it cools just fine, but when it does close, it takes it a little bit longer to open up. In other words, you can see a little bit inconsistency in that coolant temperature. So that's probably going to get swapped out. Not doing us any favors. Also, Mishimoto aluminum radiator. The reason for that thing being in the car is because, well, quite frankly, the stock radiator blew one of the sides out at the very bottom and was leaking coolant. So went with the Mishimoto. It is not lighter, though, than the stock radiator, but it is not stock, so I wanted to at least showcase that. And technically, it's a little heavier because it does have a little bit higher capacity than stock. Speaking of stock, you'll find a lot of stock parts in this car. I am running the stock airbox with the stock filter. Matter of fact, just showing you guys up there in the loft, there's the JLT that I took off of it, and as luck would have it, there is that replacement Mala filter, that LX3482 that you can find on Amazon. Even further that, hang on, let me grab this thing. Let me show you guys something. I can do this all while I'm filming. This is the original filter, if I remember correctly, that came out of the car. And this is even the one where I was pulling the CFM. I was doing the math on the grams per second. Anyway, getting the CFM, these stock filters flow just shy of 1100 CFM, which is A-OK for your stock Hellcat or any other Hemi that you might be running. Okay, so back at it. So stock filters, stock airbox, stock unported throttle body. Also, not trying to cheat down on the coolant levels or any other fluids either. That's kind of an odd thing that I've seen done, and we'll go over that here in just a little bit. But as you can see, not only is it full, but it's up to the hot full line. So not trying to cheat down on coolant either. So there you will see the passenger seat. I do remove it when we are trying to go for those numbers. Again, the philosophy basically behind this car was to mimic the one-seat configuration. It's a little bit of a mess in there. I got my cable in the helmet, but to focus, it still has the chairs back there too. With that rear seat delete, that's the Mopar rear seat delete that you would find in a rear seat delete Red Eye or in the 1320. That's same for the Demon. It's got a little bit different look, but it's the same part in general. Anyway, the idea is to have the car in that one seat configuration, but as delivered. So all the carpet is in there. Console is in there. Obviously the dash and everything else is in the car. Aside from that, this thing will focus, rear seat delete. But it's still, I mean, full interior aside from that seat being out, just like you would have found those other cars sitting in the showroom floor as a one-seat car. I actually forgot my cooler was still in the trunk. In that cooler, I have an air pump that I'll take with me to the track, as well as drinks or anything else that might be in there. But I do remove stuff from the trunk so that I can carry more stuff with me to the track. The car is driven to the track, so it's not only the race car, it's its own support vehicle. So that's really more why I pull that stuff out of the back of the car. You're really only looking at, for the Harman Kardon speaker box, 14 pounds, and the package tray itself is only 11 or 12 pounds. You're not looking at a lot of weight. And there, tucked down in there, is that Archangel battery, which saved us a little weight in the battery itself. So a little bit of weight savings there as well. Up back underneath the hood, I would be remiss if I did not mention the TBA machine idler pulleys. They're not any bigger than stock, and I guess technically they weigh less. But the main idea there is that the stock idlers look terrible, and those just look good, and I couldn't handle the old boat anchor looking idler pulley. So I went ahead and went with that. Technically, I guess it's an upgrade, but it's really just there to look good and made me happy to do the job. So there you go. All right, as far as wheels go, we're rocking the Ford Star 17 by 10s in the back and 18 by 5s up front. Those are Mickey Thompson SR 28.6s, if I remember correctly, and the DBRs are 28.10.5s. Always rocking the Hoosiers. Love the DBRs. They're very stable at high speed, and they are a bit more forgiving than the Mickey Thompson, not to mention the fact that quality control is a lot better with the DBRs than what I found at the time anyway of this filming than the Mickey Thompsons. Back here, and you got to be real nitpicky to even notice this, but it does have a resonator delete. That is a Pipes Reso delete. I did a standalone video on that showing how to install it. I highly suggest, if you're thinking about doing a resonator delete, that you think twice, because the car does get a little bit loud with that Reso delete, but I love the way that it cleans up the shot of the side of the car where you don't have the resonator dipping underneath that rear quarter panel. I have never noticed it on anybody else's car, but only on my car would it stick out like a sore thumb. So that's why I pulled that thing out of there. As far as removing any weight, believe it or not, it really didn't. I think it pulled a grand total of about 7 pounds off the back of the car to remove the Resos with the 3-inch pipe from the resonator delete kit. All right, guys, so aside from stuff that you can't see that I just couldn't show you on the video, again, was that Reso delete kit, which actually, note to, top tip for you guys, that is a real easy installation to get really, really, really wrong. So if you're ever going to decide to do something like that, pay close attention to how you're installing that part, because you can actually end up hurting exhaust flow badly if you do it the wrong way. But aside from that, yes, it is running the stock catalytic converters. We've even tried an experiment removing catalytic converters, putting off-road pipes on the car. The cars didn't pick up. In fact, in some cases, the cars got a little bit slower at the actual drag strip. So something to consider if you guys are thinking about trying to do a cat removal or do anything like that. It's not going to pick up any power. It is still running the factory manifolds as well. So the car's basically about as stock as you can get, aside from the parts that I've mentioned, as well as the tune, which is tuned by me, and a 309 gear. Now, if you're thinking about putting a 309 gear in your car, I'm gonna caution you on this, and I could probably put its own video together for some of the pitfalls that you may fall into with a 309 gear. In general, the car is not going to have a problem if you put the gear in the car. It's really only when you try to take the thing to a drag strip where you're going to start to notice that there are issues where the car, or scenarios rather, where the car can hiccup. It's what we call a yip, where the car it basically tries to command a very early shift, or it'll pull throttle back because it thinks it's going to hit a rev limiter. And there's a lot of weird tuning things that you've got to do. They can be a little bit hacky to get that 309 gear to work. And even when you get it to work great, it doesn't always operate the way that you would want to in other atmospheric conditions. It ends up being a bit of a headache. And to be honest with you guys, if you're running in really deep DA, which is the big part of this equation, you've got to run in crazy low DAs to get these kind of numbers. If you've got super low density altitude, the car is going to accelerate a lot faster. That can mess with a thing called predictive shift algorithms in the computer. And again, you might be just fine in summertime drag strip conditions, and then you take the car to the track in the wintertime when it's really running good. And just when you need that car to run its best, it yips on a shift. So anyway, that's part of the equation. So I wanted to share that with you guys as well. Now, hopefully that answers some of the questions for you guys. Again, I get this question quite a bit. I did one of these videos last year chronicling everything that was done to the car when it ran the 1008. This year, it ran a string of 1008s spanning density altitudes from negative 1100 all the way down to negative, I think it was 1600, where it finally ran the 05. Even though it spun a little bit on the launch, she still ran her best ET ever. It wouldn't be the same if it didn't have the drama, right? So, guys, y'all have a great one. Post up any comments that you got. If I didn't answer a question for you, throw it in there, and I will do my best to get you the answer that you need. That's a wrap. Adios.